Hey, everybody, welcome. It is Sunday morning where I am and Sunday evening where Ruth is. We are in another episode of 50 Conversations with 50 Strangers. To be completely transparent, which I will always like to be, is Ruth was introduced to me by another person that was on the show, Dr. Claudia. We had a beautiful conversation, and she said, "Can I please introduce you to a friend of mine?" I said, "Absolutely." Um, And during the course of the days were between when we were introduced and now, it's a little hard to be an empath because I feel people so much. And we started a conversation just to say yes, just in the acceptance of yes, here's the information. We started to do a text messaging. And I said, please, we have to stop because I don't want to know this much about you because I can feel so much about people. But let me tell you, you are in for a delightful you are in for meeting a delightful person. Because even in just the few minutes that we had together, it was just very delightful. And I felt her very, very, very close to me. So I don't know how I'm going to do this as I continue because being an empath, it makes it harder and harder to meet a stranger and to come into the room. The goal for me is to come into the room not knowing anything and just see what happens. And so I have to, like in the later conversations now, first of all, the show's been up a little bit. We're getting close to, I think we're at close to our 40th episode. We'll finish by the end of next week, the 50. We'll reamp up and do some more. But people are starting to get a little bit of a feel. And then I'm meeting friends of friends of friends of friends, which is the most delightful compliment someone could give because if they've enjoyed the experience, they say, will you have my friend on too? So all that to say, strangers are becoming friends of friends, and we're no longer strangers. But isn't that really what happens in the world too? The more we start dialoguing with each other, the less we become strangers, and friends of friends suddenly become less of strangers too. So I am babbling on, and I don't mean to. So it is with my absolute pleasure that I want to welcome Ruth Mark-Rowland to 50 Conversations. Ruth, welcome and how are you?
Thank you. I'm really pleased to be here and excited about what's going to unfold.
I love that. Um, Tell us who you are and what's important to you.
Who I am, right. So I was born in India and then brought up in Chicago for a bit and then now live in London, England. And I'm now a psychotherapist. So after 20 something years of working in the design industry, I decided to retrain and have a real passion for psychotherapy.
Wow. What made that pivot from fashion to psychotherapy?
Oh,
How
it
did that
wasn't
happen?
fashion, it was a branding. So
Branding.
it was, branding, digital design, environments, so like airplanes,
Uh,
designing the products, like as in the seating, things like that. Oh, I did business development. I wasn't a designer. So I used to
okay.
basically go and sit in boardrooms and try to harangue people into spending their design money with me.
I
But
understand that.
you did business development too, didn't you?
Yes, absolutely. But I didn't. Something happened for me in those periods of time that it was just absolutely so beautiful because there was something about the moment when you have something that somebody wants, they just don't realize it. All you have to do is what I found. All you have to do is just offer what it is and say, "Gosh, you're doing this, but like this is also possible. Would you like to do this?" It became the easiest thing in the whole world because I was doing it for a publishing house that was publishing self-help authors, and the self-help authors were in the well-known ones were in big publishing houses where they were getting a lot of money. We were a small publishing house. We were doing $3 million a year in sales, but we were still small comparatively. But within a 10-year period of time, by just simply offering people what was theirs already, where they felt more comfortable in the spot that we were giving than in another spot, we grew from 3 million to $100 million in sales. And so it became a very simple process because all you have to say is this is pretty. Do you like this? And if we really could do it, it was great. Um, what makes you happy?
My work actually makes me happy. I love what I do. So I work with clients who are in some sort of distress, and um, to help them unlock. As I always say to my clients, it's like having lots of strands of string in their head. And what we do is we just pull out one string and go, oh, there's that string. Let's look at that. What's going on there? So, yeah, my work actually does make me happy. I love what I do. And what your question was, what was the pivot? I've always been interested in people. I've always been interested in having conversations with strangers. And
I love that.
it energizes me.
Imagine
And
that. Here we are. Go ahead. I'm
here
sorry.
we are. And and so doing what I've also been interested in what causes people to become so entrenched in their distress,
Hmm.
and why it is that for a lot of people there isn't a source of happiness.
Hmm.
And so I decided to study, and the two areas that I'm really interested in are trauma and somatization. So why is it some people are resilient and why aren't other people resilient? And why do their bodies express those emotions in sickness?
Hmm. And what have you found?
I found that resilience is not born, it's made. And I found that trauma actually is part of that resilience to
Hmm.
survive.
Trauma is part of the resilience that we need in order to survive.
Yeah,
Can you go into that a little bit? That's a huge statement because
that is a huge statement.
you would think it would be the opposite. You wouldn't want that to be the case. You would think resilience comes as a result of trauma, but it's not the
Oh no,
essential
I
ingredient.
mean that's exactly what I mean.
Okay.
Resilience comes as a result of trauma.
Okay.
So it becomes our survival. It becomes the survival.
So would it be fair to say that you would approach people who are in trauma and say, I know this is terrible. I don't mean to be cavalier about this, but celebrate your trauma because through this trauma you will heal?
No, because it minimizes the trauma, and
Gotcha.
also it minimizes the experience.
Gotcha.
So it's really about working with them where they're at. And my clients. So as part of the study, I had to do an internship, and I did two internships. One was working with gay men who were HIV positive, and the other we have a in this country we have the socialized healthcare system, like completely. I mean,
Yes.
you can get private medicine, and so I did 2 years in the NHS hospital.
Wow. So can I share with you a story?
Sure.
I think you heard this on Claudia's, but and maybe if you did hear it on Claudia's, because I think you wrote to me that you heard it about my daughter.
Yes.
So I don't need to share the whole story because basically the story is I have a developmentally daughter who can't speak. So when she tries to speak and she doesn't get heard, she yells. When she yells and she doesn't get heard, she tantrums. And when she tantrums and she doesn't get heard, she attacks. Um, we figured out a way to have her to hear each other, which was absolutely the most exquisite thing in the whole world, because I realized she was putting thoughts in my head. And so when I realized she was putting thoughts in my head, and she realized she was being heard, she no longer needed to scream, tantrum, or attack.
Mm.
I believe our bodies do the same thing. I believe our life situations do the same thing. I believe our environment does the same thing. I believe our businesses do the same thing. I believe everything acts in that sort of pattern.
Mm.
Do you believe that trauma acts in that sort of pattern? That if we would listen, that we would hear, we wouldn't, and if we heard it at the early stages, and if we listened when it screamed to the early stages, if we listened before
Mm.
it tantrumed, do you listen if we listened when it's attacked, that we could stop the trauma or learn from the trauma, not stop it, but learn from it and listen to it and get what it needs and not have to have it progress?
I think the problem with human beings is that we keep going, we keep going, we keep going, we keep going till something comes crashing down in front of us and stops us. And we haven't learned how to actually love ourselves.
Yeah.
So if we loved ourselves, we'd listen to ourselves. We listen to someone else's voice. We listen to the validation that someone else gives you. But we don't know how to say, it's okay, baby, you're doing okay. Because
And why? Like,
do,
I'm sorry.
what we do is we beat the crap out of ourselves.
Yeah.
And we think that if we do that somehow, I mean, insanely somehow, we will get better.
And when do we realize that we don't? I mean, all we're doing is beating the crap out of ourselves. Like, what I see in the work that I do is the amount of self-loathing that we have, the amount of self-hatred that we have, is basically like we're just doing this. We're just hitting ourselves all the time. And we hit ourselves until we realize we can shield ourselves. So we put a shield up, but that shield is like 2 millimeters from my head.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I'm going to hit myself. So I build this silo around me that's 2 millimeters from my body. And that's the world I live in.
Yeah.
I live in an enclosed environment. And when I come to meet you and I think, oh, wow, I love meeting Ruth now. Really what happens 90% of the time is my silo meets your silo.
Yeah.
And we wonder why there's no intimacy, why there's no into me see, because we have these walls all around us.
Because we're so busy protecting ourselves.
Yeah. But
Because vulnerability is scary.
But is it any scare? Like for me, maybe I'm just so old. I'm so tired of playing the same game over and over again. The pain of being enclosed in a cell of my own making is so much more painful to me than the risk that if I show myself honestly and openly and caringly and lovingly to you, you might hurt me. I'm already hurting myself way more than you could hurt me.
Mm.
If I just stop hitting myself, then I don't need to protect myself. And if I don't need to protect myself, I can use that same practice of kindness that I learned on myself to be kind to you. And I can say, if I promise to be kind to you, and would you be willing to take one brick of our wall down and just see how we feel? And if that feels okay, let's just try. Let's just go. We don't have to take the whole wall down. Let's go one brick at a time and see what we feel like when we practice kindness with each other. Would that work in a clinical setting the way it is? I know it works people to people because I watch the change that happens in the people that I work with or the organizations that I work with, quite frankly. Would it work in a clinical setting the way you see?
Yes, because it's about relearning. I mean, for all of my clients, all of these years, I've said the same thing, which is, what's wrong with loving yourself?
Yeah.
What's so wrong about you? And I am sort of unorthodox, but what's wrong with human beings being able to love themselves?
And
Because actually, you know what, your question makes me think, because I was talking to a friend of mine who's a teacher, and she's a primary school teacher or elementary school teacher. And we were laughing about the fact that each child in elementary school is just so happy being them.
yeah.
They don't care. They don't care who likes them, who doesn't like them. If they, they just love being themselves.
Yeah.
And it's when they go into like junior high or high school that it's about belonging to a tribe, belonging to a group of people that they can identify with. And so there is that conflict or that disparity between I want to be an individual, but then I also want to belong. And
Yeah.
so it's that. And then the other thing I thought about when you said I'm so old that I don't care anymore, is that it's the 7 stages of man. So you're going back to that childhood thing of, hey, I'm me and I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. I love that. And in India, they have those places. Like I was in the stage right before my wife and I met, where I was about 2 weeks away from going off to find a 3-star cave in the Himalayas where I was going to sit the rest of my life. And then my wife,
That's where I lived, in the valleys of the Himalayas, or
oh, really?
Himalaya, the right way to say it.
Okay, I love that. I love that that's where you live. And look how much, just for those of you who are listening, look at the different approaches, look at the different cultures, look at the difference in elegance and style and simplicity. And yet look at the similarity of belief systems even behind all the stuff. And these are just strangers. I didn't know Ruth. I mean, we had a few text messages around setting this up, but we didn't know each other even existed a week ago.
No, we didn't.
And look at what's possible when you just open up the door to conversation. So, again, what I want to invite all of you who are listening, it doesn't take anything special to start a conversation with somebody. Just start a conversation, especially with somebody you don't know, and then have the courage to start a conversation with some of the people you do know, and let them really tell you who they are rather than who you think they are. You ready for the lightning round?
Go on then.
Okay. These are easy. These are going to be fun.
Okay.
Are you a dog person or a cat person?
Dog person.
Okay. And
I've just made them. I've just made them take the dogs out because I didn't want the noise.
I got you. Perfect. Um, and I always thought people were either one or the other, but I can't tell you how many people have said both, which is really interesting. I am definitely a dog person. I'm not a big cat person. I mean, I can put up with cats if they're here, but I'm definitely dog.
I
Coffee,
think the difference is, tea. I live in England. Tea.
of course, of course. You were going to say, I think the difference is.
I think the difference is cat. I read this funny thing. It said cats have staff, whereas dogs have owners.
I like that. I like that. Um, would you say you're someone who fits in the box, or you're someone who's out of the box?
I think I've always been out of the box, but I tried to get in the box. And now I'm definitely out of the box.
So, can I jump out of the lightning round for a minute? Why do you think, from your past experience and your present experience, that people that are out of the box try to get back into the box?
Well, it's the same thing. We're all trying to fit in.
We're all
And
trying to
being a
fit in.
brown person in a very white world,
Yeah.
we're always trying to fit in.
Wow. That's so powerful when you really like just step back and just come up and elevate from that statement for a minute of how much we all are trying to fit in. And I have to ask you this next question. Do you believe that you fit in, or do you believe you're different?
I believe I'm me. I live by um, the line from King Lear: "Unto thy own self be true."
Okay. So, unto thine own self be true would not be the motto or the theme or the anthem of the fit in world, would it?
No, no, it
Okay.
wouldn't.
And so, what I've been surprised at, pleasantly surprised or just surprised, is in these conversations with people that I don't know, asking them that question. The large majority of people say, I feel different. I've always felt different. I've never felt like I fit in. I always feel like it's important just to own my space, sort of like you said, but I don't know that they've been as refined to say, I want to own my space and to thine own self be true.
Mm.
But they just always felt a little bit different. And yet, I would love your expertise in this, because why would a world of people who have a community of people who feel different strive so hard to fit into a community of people that they're not like, to fit into a world that they're not like, rather than create a community of people around who they are like? and answer like one woman that I had on the show said, "Oh God, I fit in, but that's because the world's a world of misfits."
Which I quite like.
Yeah, I love that too.
I think it's very much, our primitive brain, we had to fit in, because if we didn't fit in, we'd be outside the cave.
Yeah,
And then the predators would get us.
I see.
And we'd
Gotcha.
be open to any prey getting us. And so we had to fit in. That was part of the code. And you've heard that reptilian brain stuff, which is, our brains haven't evolved that much. The world may have evolved, but our brains haven't.
Yeah.
And so we have to fit in.
So can you explain? And we're way out of the lightning round right now,
I'm
but
sorry.
it's okay. No, it's my fault because I keep asking questions. Um, so many of us are so rebellious, and we so try to fit in, and then we rebel to the fitting in of the rebellion. I mean, like, what the heck is going on? Like, we try so hard to be this, and then we rebel from it, and then we are stuck in this world of our own story making that makes us so uncomfortable, when all we
Well,
really have to
see,
do. Go ahead.
I think that, I mean, it's also partly our childhood. So if we didn't fit into our parents' requirements of you as a little boy or me as a little girl, then there was that complete fear of abandonment and annihilation. Because as a 3-year-old, you can't fend for yourself, you can't
Yeah.
take care of yourself. So we're sort of programmed to go, right, okay, got to do the right thing so that I can exist.
So it's so interesting that you say that, because I have a developmentally delayed daughter.
Mm.
I don't think she ever thinks about doing the right thing. I think she just knows that she will be completely taken care of no matter what it is she does.
Mm.
And it's that freedom that she has. It's not knowledgeable freedom, it's sort of unknowledgeable freedom. But there's that freedom that she has of just, I know whatever I do, someone will be there. If I need help eating, someone will help me eat. If I need help going to the bathroom, someone will help me go to the bathroom. She doesn't have any sense of I have to fit into the world that I live in. She wants to throw a tantrum, she throws a tantrum. She wants to scream, she screams. Uh, and when she's listened to, and when she communicates, then she just acts the way she wants to. But it's driven from inside, not from outside. She doesn't have any sense of I want to fit in, and that's why I have to do this. And I don't think I had that either growing up, to be honest.
Mm.
I had this sense that I was just love. I mean, I grew up in another generation, another era where families were. I mean, my mom was always home cooking, making us cookies when we came home from school, and my dad was worked hard and didn't make very much money and had a ton of debt. But we laughed around the dinner table, and there wasn't abuse and beatings and all the things that sometimes you feel. We grew up in a happy home. It just they didn't stay around long enough. They
Mm.
passed away when my dad passed away when I was 13, my mom when I was 15.
See, that's huge.
And so that's a trauma, but it didn't come from growing up with a family that was unhappy. It grew up from missing a family that was really
Mm.
happy.
Mm.
And so in one way, I want to challenge the story that's so neatly made of, we have to fit into the cave because if we don't, we're going to be eaten, or we have to fit in because I don't think we want to fit in. When I look at the people and the way we act in the world, we rebel against the places that make us comfortable because we don't want to be stuck in those little confines. And so the story doesn't make sense in some ways.
But do you not think that that comes with age, that the rebellion is always there, but maybe we're trying to shoehorn ourselves into a society that allows us to, you know, mirror their norms? And that as you get older, you think, well, what am I doing?
When I look back, my nature was my nature was my nature. I was, when I was a teenager, I was moved into the hippie sort of movement, which was the rebellion of the world being the way the world was being. You know, I didn't want to grow up like my parents, or I didn't want to grow up like my aunt and uncle who I ended up living with. I probably would have liked to, I probably would have never had the freedom if my parents were alive to do the things that I did. But when they weren't alive, I thought, oh God, now, you know, this is not the world I want to live in because I can't trust this world. When in my book, The Mosaic, there, I think it's over there.
Yes, that's right.
It's really the story of a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart, and he asks the adults where his parents are,
Mm.
and the adults tell him your parents are in a place called heaven. So he sets out in search of the place called heaven. But the people he finds are not the rabbis and priests and ministers and swamis and teachers and lecturers and shamans. They're the homeless man and the street worker and the trash man and the gardener and the juice man and the blind woman. And he says, I wonder why I'm meeting these people. And he says, but I'm here. Why don't I just sit with them?
Mm.
And when he sits with them, he realizes that they're not at all who he thought they were when he first came up. In 100% of the cases, just talking to them, having a conversation, shows him they're totally different than who he thought they were. And it makes him wonder, do I ever see anything the way it is, or do I just see things the way I think it is?
Mm.
And what would I see if I could see a different world?
Mm.
And at that point, he meets a monk who unzips the sky, which in my mind, that represents just opening up our mind to something different, and walks him through to a parallel reality where he meets the wise one who's the keeper of the mosaic, who arranges all the thoughts, all the pieces, all the people, all the situations, and allows you to create the mosaic that you want to create, to live in the world that you want to create. It's not set formula. You don't have to rebel. It's just like my daughter. The only reason we rebel is because we don't feel heard.
Yes.
And so what I wonder is, just like my story of seeing these people and thinking that they were a certain type of person, what story do you think you've been telling yourself all this time that might not be true?
Ooh, what a big question you asked me. Um,
It's because I love you.
no, thank you. Um, I probably tried very hard to fit in, and because I didn't think I was good enough just being me. And
Yeah.
so that's the story that's changed over the course of my studies, which is I am good enough and I am okay just being me. I don't have to fit into anyone else's paradigms.
Yeah. So, what do you think makes people feel they have to be other than themselves?
The need for validation, the need for acceptance, the need to be heard.
So, what would happen if we held a revolution of listening that allowed us to validate and listen and hear people as they are rather than forcing them into boxes where they're not, which makes them unhappy, which makes them rebel, which makes them yell, scream, tantrum, and it's destroyed because they're not being heard. And we can't be these boxes that we put ourselves in, that we try and make everybody believe we are, because eventually we're not going to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And that trauma is going to fill the offices of people like yourself,
Mm-hmm.
with non-stop clients who are just saying the same thing. I'm imagining in different harmonies, in different points, in different songs, saying the same thing over and over again with different words and different four-part harmonies. But basically, I don't feel good enough. I don't belong. I've tried to be somebody else. It's not working. I'm tired of doing that. And I want to try and figure out how to be myself and love myself again, which is such a I mean, at one point it becomes a pathetic story. Not that it's pathetic. I don't mean that in the judgmental way that it does. But after, like I saw as a kid when I went 10 people and I saw that they weren't who I thought they were, I said, there's something wrong with the way I'm seeing things. Like, what would happen if I see who people are without seeing myself everywhere? Why don't we get it that after seeing all these people go through the same formula, that we don't have to go through that formula just because we want to fit in? because we don't fit in.
Because I think we're sort of on a hamster wheel with that one, which is like we're constantly like scurrying along, scurrying along.
Yeah.
We don't step off the hamster wheel to think about it.
Why?
Because it's almost like our life depends on it. So if you stopped, then who would I be?
Yeah. And who would they be?
They'd be them, but they need to figure, they'd be perfect in the way they are. But it's that thing that they don't realize that.
Well,
Human beings don't realize that they're actually okay.
I want the listener to really listen to this conversation because I guess I'm getting old enough that things seem too simple to me. My mom always used to say I was a wise guy growing up. Now people are starting to think I'm a wise man, but I don't think it's wisdom. When you see the same thing happening over and over and over and over again, it's the definition of insanity to keep doing it and thinking it'll be different, right? But we're doing it in every place that we look. We keep thinking, I just want to fit into this group of people that I can never fit into. But when I fit into them, I'll feel good. But when we do fit into them, we don't feel good because it isn't who we are.
Yeah.
So how in the world can that maintain itself? Like it's not as if you were to write that as a theory for a college paper and say, I'm going to create a sustainable world by doing this, you would fail. It's not a sustainable theory.
No, it isn't.
And yet it's the theory we're living by because we're scared of being ourselves. What are we so scared of, Ruth? What are we so scared we'll see if we allow ourselves to see ourselves and be ourselves?
Maybe we're actually scared to see ourselves.
Why? What's the
Because we
big?
don't actually know, if you've spent your entire life trying to figure out how to fit in, you've totally ignored yourself, haven't you?
Yeah,
And finding out who you are might be scary because it creates a vacuum.
but it also might be the most exciting thing you could ever imagine. Like I watch that. That's the work that I do with people. I say to them, "Who are you?" And they say, "I don't have any idea." And I said, "How fabulous!" Like now we can try and figure that out. Like what could be more exciting than getting to know who you actually are?
But if someone has spent an entire lifetime, doesn't matter if it's 30 years or whether it's 70 years, trying to evade themselves, trying to avoid themselves, trying to escape from who they are, it would be scary, wouldn't it?
Maybe. I mean, it's all stories. Those are just beautiful stories that we tell ourselves that keep us that rationalize our belief system of we don't want to do it anymore. If I spent 70 years running into a wall and somebody said to me, Danny, hold it, you're running into a wall. There's a door right over here. Let me open the door for you and you can come out. I would go, holy Toledo, thank you so much. I'm running through the door. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
you'd think so.
it seems so simple. There's nothing scary about getting out of the problem that is our problem that makes us unhappy. Except maybe we've grown used to being unhappy so much that that's what we choose to do.
I don't know if anyone chooses unhappiness. They just don't know. They don't know a different way, maybe. They don't know how to find that door that's open.
But there are so many people that are opening doors for us. And I think we find all these excuses, all these stories. Like in writing, I wrote a book for a hotel called the Andaz, and they invited me to come and tell their story. And I said, okay, but that's great. What's your story? They said, no, you don't understand. We don't have one.
Mm.
So they invited me to this land that they were building their hotel on in Maui. And we walked the land together. And I said, why do you think people come here? What is it that what's the story that you would like to tell? And as we were walking the land, I had this vision of a home that used to be there. And I said, maybe we're rebuilding a home here. And I wrote a story based on characters that would come back to the story. But I didn't write the story about it being what it turned out to be. they invited me to go and present to their 400 staff. And the day before, I was walking the beaches of San Diego, and I had this idea, I had this thought come. And the thought came, Danny, what if you didn't create these characters? What if these characters actually used you to tell their story? And I said, what the heck are you talking about? And they said, what if this was a family home? And the family over generations got dispersed all around the world. And it was time to bring the family home.
Mm.
So it wasn't because they were the best chef or the best hotel manager or the best room person or the best architect. They were being pulled together because they were good at that. No, don't they had to be good at that to work there. But they were also being pulled together because they were dispersed from this family, and it's time for the family to come home. So in the presentation, I said I'm not going to say this to people because this just it's not right. I mean, that's made, that would make me appear bigger than I am. I didn't do that. That isn't what I do. I wrote these stories. I made up these characters. I created a scenario. But as I'm talking to these 400 people, I said, I have to tell you something. I'm going to let you choose. Like, this is gnawing away at me because I'm telling you with 100% certainty, I created this story. I made up the characters. What I'm going to tell you now after this, there's no truth to it. But as I was walking on the beach, this thing happened. So I said, which would you prefer? Would you prefer to be hired here because you're the best at what you do? Or would you prefer to be hired here because you are a family returning back to your homeland? And your family lineage has brought you back here. And by the way, you are the best at what you do. But you're coming back to make your family home accessible and to invite guests into your family home and to treat people as they would be treated by your ancestors and to treat people with the lineage that you have as a family. And from the back of the room of 400 people, a 400-pound kahuna sat there and went under his breath, Ohana, 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 Ohana. Ohana means family. And the people around him started to say it. Pretty soon, within about a minute and a half, his reverberations spread throughout 400 people who were chanting Ohana. The lights in the room flickered. Doors blew open in the room. And I said, holy Toledo, maybe I don't know maybe this isn't a lie. Maybe the thought that I had before was a lie. Everything that we do, I'm just trying to illustrate a point. Everything we do is a story that we tell ourselves.
Mm.
And when that story changes, everything in the story changes.
Mm.
What's stopping us from changing the story that we've written?
I think that's the work that I do, is I help people change their story. Because the story we tell ourselves is quite punitive and judgy.
Yeah. Okay, let's jump back into lightning round. I think that's beautiful because I think we've clarified a lot what you do. I like that.
Thank you.
I love that. Do you believe both of these are important? What do you believe is more important right now? Do you believe it's important for you to have a platform for you to be able to speak what it is you want to say? Or do you believe it's more important for you to create a platform that you can listen to other people say what they need to say?
The latter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And we already asked this question about fitting in and different, so we don't have to re-ask it.
No, we don't.
Do you believe that you operate from your head or your heart?
Heart.
And do you believe you're a leader or a follower?
I'm a reluctant leader.
Talk to me.
So, I'm not one of those that, hey, let me take over this thing. And it's like when no one else has got any control or doing anything, then it's like, all right, here I come. And that's how I do it. So I will lead, but it won't be because I've chosen to. It's when there is no order and there's complete chaos and no one else is taking action, then I will.
So can I push you a little bit?
If you like.
And you can tell me,
Tentatively.
you can tell me don't do it. Because before we came on, you were kind enough to say to me, this is a little nerve-wracking to me because I'm normally the one asking the questions, right? So
Yes.
I want to admire you for letting me have the space here to do this with you. Um, why would you reluctantly be yourself when you know yourself as what you are? I mean, it sounds good. It makes a nice story that I don't want to stand up there and be a leader. I'll do it when nobody else is doing it. I'll be a reluctant leader. But if you're a leader, there's so much power and glory in just being yourself. Like that's what this whole message of this whole conversation that you and I are having, of
Yeah.
standing in the place where we are ourselves and not making it not being reluctant about any of that, but just showing up as who we are.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Good way of looking at it. Um, why wouldn't I? Because I hate the whole thing with, when you get these leaders who are like, right, do it my way. I don't like that because I
Yeah.
think why bully people into doing something that they're not really buying into or are committed to. So I'm not like that.
So can I love when a conversation comes full circle. We all hate leaders that try and force us into fitting in, even though it's what we want to fit in,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I mean, there's the dichotomy of the whole thing, and we see it every day. In the workplace, we see people that say, you got to do it this way to fit in, you got to do it this way, and we hate those people
Mm,
because they don't feel like they have our best interest at stake.
true.
And yet we've given up our best interest to fit into places where people can tell us you got to fit in.
Yeah. We are a messy bunch, aren't we?
Well, it seems like it. I mean, a delightfully messy bunch, right?
But a messy bunch.
So in America, it really perplexes me because we vote for people to become our leaders. And whether you're a Trump supporter or not a Trump supporter, that's not my question. What I find is that people in their silos who are elected leaders don't have the courage to lead because whether you love Trump or don't, there's some things he's done that's been abysmal. But very few people within the camp of the Trump camp break camp enough to say, God, he does this great. Thank God for the economy that he brought us, and thank God for some of the things he's doing, and thank God for making Americans feel good about themselves again in whatever way that he's done that. But the way he's done it is making other people feel bad about themselves and putting people down and doing all this other stuff. That sucks. We got to do it, and leaders would stand up in my mind and say, this is good, this is not good. Democrats the same way. They don't give the dog a bone. They don't say to him, boy, what you did there was fabulous. Yeah, the economy really picked up. But they just, every time he turns the corner, they hit him with a pole. And nobody has the courage to stand up again for the truth rather than for the fitting into their party. So you can see this whole concept of fitting in for me is a huge concept.
Mm,
And how trapped we are by the desire to fit in because it takes away our own moral values.
yes, it does. Yeah. But that's difficult, isn't it? Because it's on the one hand, we want to stand with other people. We want to belong to a voice that is louder than another voice.
Totally.
And so fitting in isn't necessarily an individual thing, it's also a collective thing.
Yeah. And I so understand it because I know when I first found my tribe of like-minded people, I couldn't believe it. I was so happy. I couldn't believe there were other people like me that had the crazy ideas that I had and lived life the way I did it and felt like I felt. And I didn't have to explain myself all the time to people. And it felt so good. It felt like being in a cool river or a cool pond on a warm day. It just felt refreshing.
Mm.
But everything has its season, as Ecclesiastes says. And it seems now our like-minded communities are getting wider and stronger. But the space between like-minded communities is getting wider and deeper.
Mm.
And now our like-minded communities are some of the biggest problems we face, because we're all in a like-minded community, and innovation happens when we share ideas of unlike mind.
Yeah. And we're not hearing the other side.
We're not even listening to the other. I mean, we're not even giving them a chance. When people speak, if you listen on our news stations, they invite the person from the other side, but they'll get four words out, and they'll overspeak them. You know, and they do it on all the stations. It's not like one party's guilty; all of them are guilty. And so, what I don't get, again, I mean, I understand if they go against their party, they probably won't get reelected because they have a base that has to vote for him. But wouldn't it be better to go for truth? Because how will we ever solve things if we are all sequestered in our like-minded community?
But truth, you see, that's the difficult one, isn't it? Because isn't what may be true to one person may not be true to another person.
Granted, but look,
Thanks.
we all know that we're not solving hunger, because we want, if one side's saying this is the plan to do it and the other side says this is the plan to do it, and they're not allowing each other to come together and figure out how they can do it together, rather than have one side. Like when the sides come to the middle, we create solutions, and we create a truth that is sustainable. But when one side says no, this is the way you have to do it, and the other side says this is the way we have to do it, we create a stalemate and nothing gets done. And we leave common problems that should be solved years and years ago still open into these gutters that nobody walks into because it's too dangerous to walk into them.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what's happening with people of color in America now and all around the world.
All around the world.
Look at what's happening. 3 years ago, it was the Me Too movement. That seems almost like distant now. But
Yeah.
look at the way women were treated. I mean, it's just this. When will we realize our differences make us beautiful, like a mosaic, and it makes the artistry of what we do more beautiful?
When we stop being defensive about what we believe.
And what would help us to do that?
To step outside of your ego and allow someone else in.
So when I allow someone in who doesn't fit in, what does that do to my desire to fit into a group of people who don't do that?
Mm. I don't know what to say to you. I try to process this thought.
Okay. But it's interesting, no? And it all comes from a story that has a very strong foundation, but the foundation is falling apart.
Yeah, the foundation is falling apart, but humanity has to rise up, doesn't it? We have to be able to look another person in the eye who is different, who is not from our silo,
Yeah.
and go, it's okay.
Yeah. So let me ask you the last question in the lightning round,
Right.
because I want to honor your time. We're going over a little bit. I'm sorry for that. I told you I was going to let you talk, and I'm talking all the time. I apologize.
It's okay.
Do you think people are more different than they are the same, or more the same than they are different?
People fundamentally are the same. We all want to be loved. We all want to be heard. And we all want to be seen.
So then, what happened? If we all want that, how did we silo ourselves in these silos where we don't do that for people, for ourselves or for other people anymore?
Because in a way, what we do is we go around trying to meet our own needs in this kind of crazy way instead of having a voice.
All right. What do you think the world, do you believe the world speaks to us? Do you believe situations speak to us?
Yes.
What do you think the world's trying to tell us right now?
Acceptance and tolerance. I think the world is saying, be more accepting, be more tolerant, be more loving, be more kind. And, the thing is that the whole world of social media has created a world where we curate and edit ourselves
Yeah,
to present something we're probably only 10% of.
yeah,
But to be real means just be real.
yeah,
And it's funny, isn't it? Because though we're more connected, we're more lonely.
yeah. I think that's one of my big missions is to reconnect the disconnected world.
Mm,
We know what's happening 10,000 miles away within 3 seconds, but we don't know the name of our next door neighbor.
that's right. And we don't even look them in the eye.
Yeah, and now with coronavirus, we can't. We're scared.
Yes,
We're scared to look.
it's made the other even a greater enemy, hasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. What do you think the world's trying to say to you right now?
I think the world is trying to say to me right now, go ahead and be you, even in your work, because you don't have to pretend to be somebody else.
I love that, and I want to tell you how much I support you and honor you for saying that.
Thank you.
And if there's anything I can do to support you and lift you up and help you whenever you need to, whenever you feel you can't, just contact me.
I will indeed. Thank you so much. I
We,
really appreciate this time and appreciate your kindness.
it is my absolute honor because you have such insight and such clarity. And I remember a coach of mine, Tony Robbins, once said to me, "We're not far away from where we want to be. We're 2 millimeters away from where we want to be. But if we continue going that 2 millimeter difference in 100 miles, we won't even recognize where we are anymore.
Mm,
It seems so small here to make the shift here. Why don't we just make it now?"
mm.
And I think it's so small for all of us who are listening, all of us who are living our lives. If we can make this small change, we can catch ourselves from having to make this big change
Mm.
hundreds of miles away.
Yeah.
It's time.
Namaste.
What would be your final thing that you would want to say to this world if you knew they were listening right now and you could say one thing to them?
I'd say to them, you're not Play-Doh. You don't have to twist and turn and morph yourself into anything other than you. And just be you. You're okay.
Love it. Love it. How can people get in touch with you if they're as intoxicated with you as I am?
No. They can look at my website, which is ruthmarkrowland.com, or there's also my Facebook page, which is Ruth Mark-Rowland Psychotherapy.
And we'll have all that in the show notes for you, so you can reach out to her as you see fit, or you can follow her. I'm sure she does things that allow people to follow her and showcase what she does and share her thoughts with you. Ruth, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking a risk to go into the other chair. I
Yes.
can't even say it, to go into the other chair today, and to be asked the questions rather than asking the questions. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength to do that, and I honor you and respect you, and I love the the power of which that you hold. It was really a treat to get to know you, and I thank you for um, this time. In a very short period of time, my life feels enriched.
Thank you. I really appreciate talking to you, and I appreciate the fact that I've got a new friend.
Absolutely, we got a new friend. For those of you who listen to this all the time, I want to thank you again for coming. Another fabulous episode. This room is like magic. People walk in strangers and walk away as friends. And so I love the magic that happens in this room. Take the time to explore it. Maybe you want to create conversations with people that you don't know. Maybe you want to start something up. Why not do it to at least one person today or sometime in your life? Just walk up to someone you don't know and just ask them how they are and see what happens. Stranger things have happened than having two strangers come together and become friends. This is easy. Until next conversation, thank you. Share this one with friends that you have. Invite people that you know to come and join in these conversations. If you have somebody that you know who wants to be in a conversation or you yourself want to, contact me. Let me know. Let's have a conversation. Until then, thank you so much.